welcome everybody. I have the distinct pleasure of starting our second ever Coffee, Cocktails, and Capitalism podcast with a very good friend, a trusted mentor, could I call you perhaps a business associate?
Yes, please.
A business associate?
Absolutely.
Yes. And he has generously given of his time today to share some wisdom from his many years of doing business and making money. And I wanted to call this business wisdom through the ages, but
sounds appropriate.
I was hinted at that was maybe not respectful and that present company has not lived through ages per se. So anyways, welcome,
Thank
Joe
you.
Coakley.
Absolutely wonderful opportunity for myself. I think for the world, for me to be here today to hopefully impart a little bit of wisdom to your audience.
Yes. No, we're so excited to have you. The whole purpose of this podcast is kind of to talk about business, work, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're just kind of a go-getter in whatever position or industry you happen to be in. We want to learn from people who are doing things that are different than what we're doing and just kind of keep expanding our thinking so that we can hopefully keep growing and do better and become more successful in whatever field we're trying to be in. So, all right. So rapid fire introduction. Where are you from?
Originally born in New Haven, Connecticut.
How long have you been in Vero Beach?
We came to Vero Beach, my wife and I, in 1988.
Excellent. And kids, grandkids?
2 boys, Patrick and Sean. Well, one boy living here in town,
Excellent.
Sean.
Yes.
And my other boy is a pilot, a jet pilot, who's traveling all over the world at different moments of the day.
Well, that's very exciting.
So it is. And of course, I have my 2 great-grandchildren living here. So I am so blessed.
Oh, that is awesome. I've met some of your family, and
Yes, you have.
They are wonderful people.
Thank you.
Just like you. So good job building the legacy in that way.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your business legacy. I would say, if I could, that most people here in town know you as an ambassador for Marine Bank.
You would be 100% right.
That is
There's no
what
question.
the people in the street would say you do.
Yes.
You do for a living.
I don't know exactly where to start with all of this, but
I'm going to guide you through it.
Okay.
We're gonna go back in time a little bit.
But I did have the opportunity to come on board with Marine Bank because of some friendships that were made many, many years ago. So, and then we can expand on that a little bit later.
So you get to, in your current capacity, do a lot of networking. You get to meet a lot of people.
Correct.
Build some relationships. And I also know you because we're both on the board for Main Street Vero Beach.
We certainly are.
Which is a pretty cool up-and-coming organization.
Yes, it is. And I am blessed to have you on the board with me. So that makes it all the better.
It hasn't been that long yet. We'll see if you're still saying that in another couple of months.
So,
but yes, as president of Main Street, as someone who's invested in a lot of the different networking groups and community groups, I just really appreciate that you are interested in the community and interested in putting your tools and what you've learned over the years back into the community that we're living in now.
Well, I guess probably what I'd like to say is, let's start with Main Street just for a moment, and we can go to some other topics. Main Street was of great interest to me only because I saw an opportunity to revitalize or help revitalize Main Street downtown Vero Beach. Mm-hmm. And the reason I saw that is because I drive through it every single day, including Sundays. And I just said, it's starting to get a little old in the way it looks, the way it's acting. And I said, maybe I should try to impart some of my thoughts and ideas to our local county government, our city government, and see what we can do to help not only the merchants that earn their living there, but
Mhm.
also the people who walk the streets and live there every day of the week.
Yeah.
And so I got this thought in my head, well, there is an organization called Main Street. Why don't I become involved with them?
Yeah.
So I presented myself to the city council one day and told them that I was going to be a part of Main Street. And I did not want them to come and question me. Why would I want to do that? I wanted to tell them why I wanted to do it.
Okay.
Because I don't live in the city. I
Mm.
don't pay taxes to the city.
Mm.
But I feel that the city is just as much a part of me as it is to anybody who lives and pays taxes. So I'm here to help.
Mm.
And that's what my life is about, is trying to help others.
Yes.
So
You do that. And I am always inspired that you give so generously of your time and your energy, and rarely are ever crabby about it, or,
thank you for that.
putting on a little,
Thank you for
there's
that.
probably a more eloquent way to say that, but a lot of people will come into my office having a rough day and need a real vent session. And usually you come into my office and ask how you can help.
That's what it's all about. That's what life is all about. How can we help each other?
Well, I think it is miraculous that after many, many years, you are still in a phase of life where you wish to help people. So let's go back in time a little bit and
Sure.
see how we got here. See
Okay.
how Joe Coakley arrived at where he is.
Well, my beginnings.
Yes.
Like I said earlier, I was born in Connecticut and I did a lot of things through high school and whatnot. And that kind of prepared me for life.
What was kind of like your first working experience?
I actually worked, I think I repeated this to you many months ago, maybe even a few weeks ago, that I had a job in the local town, Milford, Connecticut, where I drove an ambulance and helped people. That was the beginning of my life of helping people. When you're trying to help somebody who is injured physically, even mentally sometimes, you know that there's an opportunity to really help and give those people their life back sometimes. So that imparted a lot to me during those 5 years that I worked as an ambulance person, or an EMT in today's standards, okay? So that created what I thought was going to be part of my life. I even thought maybe I might be a doctor because of it at some point in time.
So
but
you
that
enjoyed it
I
overall.
enjoyed it very, very much. It was a great learning experience.
Yeah.
So then I decided I was going to go to college, and I went to college in Maine and went to a state teachers college.
Okay.
And spent.
So wait just
Go
a
ahead,
second.
sure, please.
So how old were you when you were doing the ambulance work?
15 to 18 years of age.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Okay. So very young.
Very young.
All right. And what were some, do you have one or two really memorable experiences from that?
Well, let's say that I have one in particular, and that is multiplied by 4, because I was able to, at that time, deliver 4 children into the world.
Wow.
Which is something, as a 16-year-old, how many 16-year-olds get to do something like that?
Very few.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it gives you a real meaning of what life is. Okay. And when you're there with a woman who is in a panic situation because she's going to have that baby at any second, and she's walking down her stairway in her house, and the baby is starting to fall out of her.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I am standing there holding my hands, helping to deliver that baby.
On her staircase?
Yes, on her staircase.
Oh my goodness.
And my adrenaline is flowing so fast, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing because that was a brand new experience.
You would know what they were doing.
Right, exactly. Okay. But that's the feeling of life. You're bringing life into this world. You're helping to bring life into this world.
Wow.
So what a great, and that was multiplied 3 times more because I did it 4 times in my lifetime there.
Wow.
So
a lot of people suddenly having babies in your town.
Yes, absolutely. All of a sudden, yes.
All of a sudden, yeah.
It's those cold winters.
I guess that's what it is. Anyways, so after delivering all the babies, you said, I'm going to go get some higher education.
Absolutely. So I decided to go to a state teachers college because I thought that might be the right thing for me to do, because I thought maybe I could help educate young children. And I love children very, very much. And it would have been the right thing for me to do at that age, because I was young enough to be able to work with children because children, as most of us know, are a handful many days. And so you better be young while you're working with children.
Physically fit.
Physically
to
fit and
chase-
mentally fit.
Mentally fit to keep up with them.
Yes, absolutely.
Understandable.
But so I got there and I went through 3 years and I was offered a contract to teach. And your audience will laugh at this, but I was offered a contract of which I would have taught in a one-room schoolhouse, K through 8. So
Where
obviously
was this?
back in a small town called Machias, Maine,
Okay.
which is near Eastport, Maine, the Bay of Fundy, and all those familiar things to people. And I didn't accept it. And the reason I didn't accept it is because I knew with the amount of money that they offered me, I could not live. They wanted to pay me $2,600 a year to live, and that was to support my beloved wife. Okay. And the two of us
We were already married?
Yes, I was married.
When did you meet Judy?
I don't remember the exact dates. I apologize. Oh, I hope she's not watching. Cut this part out. Yes.
How old were you guys? Was this in high school? Was this
Yes,
a high school
we
romance?
actually met in high school.
Oh.
My cousin was married to her brother, and that's how we met. Okay. So it was a close-knit family situation.
Nice.
And so we finally got married, and I decided.
Finally, you were still babies.
Well, there was a love-hate relationship like there is in lots of beginnings. And we both weren't sure what we were doing. Okay. But we got through it wonderfully. And here we are 56 years later, still married.
Amazing.
Okay. And I'm amazed even sometimes that she stayed with me all these years.
Bless her heart.
Yes, bless her heart is for sure.
Yes. We love Judy.
So.
Okay. So getting back to going to school, you were already married. You had to think about supporting your wife, possibly a family. The one-room schoolhouse deal was maybe not it.
Not yet. It wasn't going to be for me. So I had to look for work at that point in time in our lives.
Okay.
And so my father, who was a typical father of that era, said to me, he says, I would go and probably get a job in a post office or become a fireman or become a policeman or something like that, because those are safe and secure jobs.
Yes.
You're going to
Steady
collect your
paycheck,
retirement.
right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Collect your Social Security when you retire and all that good stuff.
Now, your parents, what kind of jobs did they have? Did they go to school?
My mother was very poorly educated. In fact, I don't think she really made it past her sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
But she was a worker, a physical worker. She had that energy to work. And my father also was a professional boxer for many years.
Wow.
Okay.
That's interesting.
And then when age creeps up on you, you can't do that any longer.
Yeah.
He became a fireman, and he worked for Pratt & Whitney Aircraft for many, many years. And he was able to support the family because of that. Okay.
Good for him.
And so my mom worked at different jobs throughout her life. Okay. And of course, I didn't make a lot of money, neither one of them, because they didn't have the education to go to a higher level of workmanship out there. But anyhow, I am still blessed to have had great parents.
Yeah.
They imparted a lot of wisdom into me. They imparted a work ethic, which today is something that I think is sorely lacking in our world. But I will do everything from my standards to impart to young boys and girls today that they need to work. They can't look for handouts.
It's so tough because I think the way having a good family situation, really, there's very few replacements for having parents that are interested in you, invested kind of in your best interest, are willing to kind of take a moment and say, hey, I think this might be a good plan for you, and modeling that work ethic. I think a lot of times the next generation don't get to see their parents working. It's
Correct.
kind of a mystery what they're doing. And then the kids nowadays it's easy for them to live their own lives, right? Because they can be doing stuff on the internet or making their own videos or
Correct.
whatever it is type of thing. So there's maybe less of that I was very fortunate to be able to shadow my parents doing all the interesting things that they were doing.
You are fortunate.
Yeah. No, it was very cool. And, my parents were very committed to my brother and I. They made a lot of sacrifices for us and stuff. And we saw that. And I think that motivates you too.
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I think there's kind of that stereotype of, immigrant parents or, even first generation people that have the opportunity to do something a little bit better, right? Or if they saw that their parents made sacrifices to bring them here or whatever, then they're that much more motivated to kind of, make the best of it type of
Correct.
thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, we got off track.
It's okay.
One room schoolhouse. You said no. Dad said, find a steady paycheck, boy. You're married. You've got responsibilities. Figure it out. And you did what?
So Dad said, I'll help you. He said, I'll help find a job for you. And he did. And I went to work for a company called AFCO Lycoming, which obviously made engines.
Obviously. Everybody knows that for sure.
So here I was, fresh out of a college situation, and I was given a title. I don't know how I got the title, but I was called a design change engineer.
Interesting.
Well, I had no engineering background whatsoever. But anyhow, they put me at a desk at AFCO Lycoming, and they said, we want you to go through these prints and do this and do that. And I sat there for 6 months doing that. And I finally came home to Judy one evening, and I says, Judy, I have to tell you, I just can't do this. She says, what do you mean? I says, I'm sitting at a desk all day. I says, I can't do that. I says, that's just not me. I have to be up and I have to be meeting people and doing things with people, not sitting looking at blueprints all day long.
So about how old were you when you were doing this?
I was 22 years old.
Okay.
At that time.
You were able to kind of say, you know what, I know myself well enough that this is not a good fit. There's something else I could be doing.
So I didn't know what to do. So I started looking through the local newspapers, looking at the want ads and saying, okay, here's something that might be good for Joe to go and apply for. And I said, why not become a cop?
Why not?
Why not?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean,
I could do that. You watch enough Long Ranger television programs and you say you carry a gun.
You're prepared.
Anybody can carry a gun, okay?
Totally.
So I did, and I applied, and I became a cop.
Shoot the bad guys. Yeah.
So I became a cop for approximately, I think, a little 3 to 4 years, whatever it was, and had an opportunity one evening to get shot at and decided that was not the life I wanted to live either.
Okay, slow down.
Okay.
Not that, they say that's always a possibility on the cop job as a police officer, but what type of circumstance did you find yourself in?
Well, I was working what they call a midnight to 8 shift, and I happened to be on a walking beat that evening. And because of that, it was a cold, wintry night, and we carried a walkie-talkie type radio with us, so we knew whatever was going on throughout the city.
I want to make a joke about them having those back then, but I won't
because
because this is a serious story.
Okay.
So
anyhow, I'm listening to the walkie-talkie, and I hear this situation going on with the different police cars within the city, and they're chasing another car, and it sounds like there's shots being fired. And I said, well, they're never going to come in this area where I'm walking, so I have nothing to worry about. Next thing I know, I'm turning around and I'm hearing gunfire coming closer and closer and closer.
Oh my gosh.
And all of a sudden, these cars are coming by me, whizzing by me, and the shots are going over me.
Oh no.
And one comes across the top of my shoulder, okay?
Yikes.
And into a building. And the next thing I find myself is looking down this street which headed into a small river. And these gentlemen drove their car into the river. So I physically ran, because it was only maybe 100 yards away. I ran down there and found myself with probably the worst case of adrenaline I think I could ever have in my life.
Oh my gosh.
Because I had to extricate one of those gentlemen out of the car. And it wasn't a nice scene. I promise you it wasn't nice. I probably lost a little bit of control that night, pulling those gentlemen out of the car. And probably I did some things that maybe were not appropriate, especially in today's standards. I really would have been questioned, okay? But I did it anyhow. And when I went home after that shift, and I went home to Judy that night or that morning, I sat down with her. She made me breakfast, which she did almost every day when I came home from a midnight shift. And I says, here we go again. She says, what do you mean? I says, well, I don't think I'm going to continue in this job. I says, my life is too valuable to me and to you and to our future children at that time. And I said, I'm not going to do this. So I decided immediately I would go in that day and quit the job. And I did.
Okay.
And that was in December. And actually, 2 days later, December the 7th, which is an infamous date to a lot of people.
It is Pearl Harbor
Correct,
Day.
correct.
Yes. Okay. Very good.
I saw an ad in the paper.
Okay.
And it was an ad to be a car salesperson.
All right.
I says, well, there's an opportunity again. I says, I love talking with people, and why not give it a try? So between December 8th and the end of that month, I remember the numbers like it was yesterday, I sold 17 cars.
Wow. I mean, that sounds like a lot.
It is a lot.
That's like almost a car per day.
Yeah, exactly. And I says, this is the greatest business in the world. I says, how easy is this? And I said, I looked at my paycheck at the end of the month and I said, oh my God, Judy, we're going to be millionaires at this rate, okay? So
You're
I
like,
said,
what have I been missing out on this whole time?
Exactly. So I stayed in the business. I guess in the Connecticut area, I stayed in the business for probably close to 20 years. And had moved from a Volvo dealership to a Cadillac dealership, and then finally to a Chrysler dealership. And then I was plucked out of the Chrysler dealership by two friends of mine who also were in the car business. And they said they were moving to Florida and they'd like to know if I would like to come along with them. So I said no. And then they went and they kept calling me and calling me and calling me. And Judy and I would keep discussing it and saying, no, we don't want to go. And then finally I looked at Judy one day. I said, here's an opportunity for both of us. I says, I don't want to wait like most people who I had seen over the years till they were 65 years old and retire and move to Florida.
Yeah.
Because what I saw was they all got down there into Florida for 2 or 3 years. They all of a sudden missed their grandkids up north, and they missed everything else about what was their friendships all their lives.
The life that they had built,
And they would get here to Florida. They knew nothing about Florida. They knew nothing about the doctors. And when you get to be 65 and 70 years old,
that's important.
those are important factors for your life.
Yeah.
So I says, let's do it while we're in our 40s. Let's move. So we made the decision, both of us, to move.
Yeah.
I moved down here for 6 months first by myself, and she stayed up there to sell the house.
Okay.
I called her up one day.
So you brought all the kids at this point?
No, they were in college.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we were kind of on our own.
So little empty nesters.
Nesters.
Okay.
I saw a house one day. I called up Judy. I says, I just put a deposit on a house. She says, you did what? So I bought the house, and she came down. She approved it. And we went on with our life here in Florida. And
nice.
That's really what happened to us at that point.
So how long were you in the car business?
Total in my lifetime, probably almost 30 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And one thing that I had forgot to mention probably is I spent about 6 years in Connecticut also in the banking industry with a good friend of mine. And that's what gave me my background in banking, which allows me to say I am a banker today also. So
was that before or after cars?
that was in between cars.
Okay.
There was a stint in there for about 5 years that I
Okay.
went into the banking industry.
How old were you when you were a police officer?
I was in my late 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
And like I say, it was a short period of time, but it was a long enough period to really get to know what that job is all about, how blessed we are as Americans to have those people out there to protect us, because people have no understanding when you're out there the responsibility you have with that
Mm,
gun that sits on your hip,
mhm.
and what might happen to you that night when you go to work, or that day when you go to, you never know if you're really going to come home.
Yeah.
That's the strong possibility.
Yeah.
And you're out there supposedly trying to protect everybody that's out there as citizens.
Yeah.
So that it was a lot of weight on my shoulders.
Mhm.
I can see why young policemen age very quickly. They get
Mm.
gray hair very quickly, or they even lose their hair, okay? Because of the stress of that job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
bless all of them.
Have to actually deal with really unpleasant situations.
Yes,
And like
exactly.
you said, you never know what the day will bring. You don't
Exactly.
get to plan it, And I agree. Those people work very, very hard and they're willing to make a big sacrifice.
Yes.
I think that's interesting because I did not know that about you
Okay.
at all. And that makes me think it's an interesting detail to understand because you spend a lot of time working with or talking to the different law enforcement
Mhm.
leaders and groups in our area
Yes.
about things that are happening in our community. So that's interesting to me to know that you're coming from a place of kind of you've been where they've been type of thing.
Correct. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful to all of them today that
Hmm.
walk the streets, ride in the cars, and do what they do.
Yeah.
So
Yes. No, we're thankful for all of them until they give us a speeding ticket. Then we're
yes.
less thankful. But I think it's interesting just to kind of note that you went through several different career changes.
Correct.
And I have friends that have done that where, they are in kind of one type of work and then, oh gosh, like maybe I'll go back to school, maybe I won't, but then they do. And it's kind of, all these years of hard work and sacrifice and things like that. But I think it's good to know that that's maybe a little bit normal if you're trying to really advance
Yes, it is. I
in
think it's
life.
perfectly normal.
Right.
The other statement to add to what you're saying is, at least it's a belief for me,
Mm-hmm.
is we're all born with a brain, some of us smarter than others.
That is true.
But if you develop a great work ethic when you're young, as you grow older, you will realize that there is no challenge that you can't work at and win that challenge, because we are all very, very capable. You just have to have that desire in your heart to be able to go ahead, do what the challenge is, and make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all capable of that.
Do you think that just to be a little bit devil's advocate, do you think
Sure.
that's become a little cliche to say, like, oh, you can put your mind to it and you can do it? What about people who really feel like, they've tried a few things and, they kind of feel like they keep failing for whatever reason?
Well, there's no question in my mind. What you just said is very true, and that happens. But I had an opportunity last evening
Hmm.
when I was at our local Vero Beach High School, watching all of the seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen who were 4.0 students being honored last night.
Mm.
And in that group of students that were being honored, there were some children that were actually challenged in many, many different ways.
Mm.
But because they had great parents who were assisting them with their educations, they had great teachers, they were being honored last night, and they met the challenge. And if challenged young people can meet the challenge, why can't you and I, as we call ourselves normal, why can't we meet the challenges?
Right.
We can.
Yes.
We just have to want it bad enough.
I think that is maybe the crux of it, is that sometimes maybe we're trying to do things that we're not actually that excited about.
Correct.
Or it's maybe not a great fit for us based on, how we function as a human in the world type of thing.
Yes.
So the caveat I would put on you can put your mind to it and do anything is also your path might change a little bit, but you can still get to a certain level of success if that's, what you're going after type of thing.
Absolutely.
So you did car sales, you found some success, and then you finally convinced the wife to move down to Florida. Now we're here in the Sunshine State. What is happening now?
Well, got down here, and for the first 6 months, as I said, these two gentlemen had asked me to go to work for them. And I told them that I appreciated that opportunity. The problem that they had was that they were very smart, and they were approximately 10 years probably ahead of their time with what they had created.
Mm,
And they had created a computer networking system that was going to link automobile dealerships together for the purpose of taking used car inventories and
mm,
exchanging them amongst each other. Say, for example, a car dealer in Tampa had a Ford Mustang, and a car dealer here in Vero Beach had a customer that wanted that Ford
right,
Mustang type of thing.
right.
Well, they could exchange cars just by getting in on the internet, finding it, and then working a deal to get that car here.
That back-end database.
Yeah,
And that was
exactly.
new at the time.
And so it was my job to go from dealer to dealer to dealer all over the state of Florida and try to sell that concept.
Okay.
It was just way too early. The computer wasn't something that people really understood at that time, and they just felt that it was invasive into their personal space sometimes. And what are you trying to do?
Shocking.
Are you? Yes, exactly. Are you trying to
They
find
knew
out?
it even back then.
Were you trying to find out what my business is all about? And that
Oh,
there were those thoughts.
security concerns.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
So I found myself again. I spent 6 months at that, and those two great gentlemen who still live here in Indian River County, they went separate ways. They closed that business down, and I said, "Well, here we go again. I have to find something to do."
Mm,
So I went to work for a local Chevrolet dealership here. Probably, if there's any of the listeners out here listening to this, that was Janie Dean Chevrolet, and that was owned by Roger Dean, who owned 40 some odd dealerships throughout the United
40
States.
dealerships?
40
That
dealerships,
is a
okay?
lot.
Yeah, it was an awful lot, okay? And so I went to work for Roger and spent a lot of years working for Roger and his organization. And then, as we all know, as we get a little older, and if we put a lot of energy into what we do and we give ourselves completely to what we do, sometimes we don't think about ourselves
Mm,
personally and
mm,
our health.
mm,
So I had the unfortunate situation of going home one evening and laying down in my bed, yelled to my wife, Judy. I says, "Judy, I am in trouble. Call an ambulance."
Oh my gosh.
And I had a major heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
And so, again, I brought that on myself. I know that now,
Mm,
that's what the cause was. I put a lot of pressure on myself to do those kind of things.
yeah.
So
I
time,
think that was a little bit of a common thing, maybe,
Mhm.
that
and in my way of working was you worked 18 to 20 hours a day because that's what you did. You ate all the worst foods in the world, which weren't good for your
well,
body.
fast foods were even more and more available at that
Exactly.
time, right?
And you smoked cigarettes,
Oh my
which I
goodness.
did. I did all the wrong things in the world. But it was only because I was trying to do what my mind told me was the right things. I was
Right.
doing all these things to make money, to
Yep.
make money, to make
Yep.
money,
Mm-hmm.
to do other good things for
Right.
other people. So
Right.
that wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So fortunately and unfortunately, I had to get out of the car business again.
Mm,
That's when I found myself going back into the banking business,
okay.
which I applied for a job locally here
Okay.
with a bank called Barnett Bank. Many of your viewers or listeners probably know that name.
Okay.
And I went to work for them for a year and decided that after a year of working for a big corporate bank, that wasn't the position that I wanted to be in.
Mm.
And one more time, it was time for me to move again. So
Oh boy.
poor Judy. She has to put up with me through all of this. Okay.
How many times did you move, do you
Oh
think?
my God, many times. I can't even count them all, to be honest.
Okay. All right. So we're moving again.
We're moving again. And it was time then to do something that I said, maybe I should do something for myself. What can I do? And I was very close with lots and lots of people, knew lots of people. And I looked at what many of us would call the executive search business. That's what I called it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I can put people to work. I know people.
Okay.
I'm good with people.
So other people might call that recruiting or headhunting type
exactly.
of thing.
And
but
that's
executive search.
Executive search.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started a little firm and I worked out of my house.
That's so cool.
And I was quite successful, really and
Excellent.
truly.
Yes.
I was putting doctors to work. I was putting bankers to work. I was putting lawyers to work, not just locally, throughout the country.
So real quick, what would you say really helped you get that off the ground?
Just my desire for two things. The desire to support my wife and my kids who were going to college.
Mm-hmm.
You had to do that. And I really had to work hard. Plus the fact that here was an opportunity for me to be my own boss, to sit there and make my life what I wanted to really make of it without somebody else telling me, Joe, you have to do this. Joe, you have to do that. Here was an opportunity. And I said, this is what America is all about, is opportunities to do something.
That's right.
And so I said, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And I was very successful for quite a few years. And all of a sudden, one of these large corporations came about, and I don't have to mention the name, but they're out there today. And, they do everything for such a minimum amount of money.
Yeah.
Because of the volume that they do.
And you were basically kind of priced out of the market.
I was priced out of the market.
Yeah.
So here I am, and I says, okay, Joe, maybe it's time for you to just sit back and retire. And that was the time that I decided to retire.
Okay.
But unfortunately, who I always like to say this in a jokingly way, but it's partially true. Judy and I love each other, but we don't live together 24 hours a day without getting on each other's nerves at different times. And that's human nature,
that's
okay?
Very common, yes.
So I says, I need to do something because I need to be with people on the outside. Yeah. What can I do, okay? And give her space also that I feel is necessary for her.
Have a little something to talk about at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Because you went and did a little something else.
Right, exactly. So I did. I started to do different things. I got involved with different civic organizations, became very involved with Exchange Club for many years, became local president, built 4 exchange clubs here in Indian River County, became president of Exchange Club for the state of Florida.
What is exchange? And can I ask?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Sorry, uneducated. I don't know what
it's okay. It's a good question because I'm sure a lot of people don't know. The primary thrust for Exchange Club was to help prevent child abuse. That's their primary thrust.
Interesting.
And I just saw that. I saw so many parents, whether they're rich or poor, who abused their children in so many. And there's different kinds of abuse.
Yeah.
There's mental abuse. There's physical abuse. Right. There's all those things. And, I guess maybe I'm a softie because if I looked at, say, a 3 or 4 year old child who got beat up by their father or their mother, and you saw them in a hospital room sometimes with welts all over, what could I do to help try to prevent that?
Well, of
so
course.
The prevention part of that is education, and that's what we did as far as Exchange. We tried to educate people in the prevention of child abuse.
Interesting.
So I did that, and that worked very, very well for me and Judy because we were really involved with that for quite a few years.
That's cool.
And then
she was a part of it too.
She was a part of it. She would go to the conventions with me and everything else. And I felt that, that it was important for her to be there, to understand what it was that I was trying to do. And I wanted her to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to, I guess, my philosophy is work with people, work together, work with your husband, work with your wife, work with your friends on the street, help educate as many people as you can, and impart your feelings on other people to let them know what it is that they should be doing. Not that I am the guru in the world of what people should be doing, but we all have good in us. And if I can impart that goodness or my feeling of goodness to others, that's what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
So
that, I I just keep hearing in your stories that you're just not afraid to get up and go do something every day.
No.
And even if it's hard or difficult, I would imagine that there's been some pretty difficult conversations you've had to have probably in your business and
Many.
personal careers.
Many.
Yeah.
No question about that. And I guess I could probably think of 2 or 3 of them, and I don't really maybe
You
want
don't have to go into any
Yeah,
details or anything like that.
It's
but-
just what you said is very, very true. And sometimes you have to wonder when you're dealing with people why they would come back and attack you because you're trying to do something good.
Mhm.
And I've noticed probably in the past 5 to 10 years, I see more and more of that happen, not just to me, but to many other people. I sit here with you, and I know you're a good person. I know that a lot of your friends or your business associates, they are good people. Why do they get attacked? What is going on out there? Is there a jealousy factor, or are they jealous because you work hard every day and you earn your money? They have just as many opportunities. All they have to do is get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go do this.
Well, I do think that there is, and I forget this sometimes, but I try to blame it on the devil doesn't want us to be working together, because if we did and solved all the world's problems, then what would he be able to do? Right.
Mhm. Okay.
So I do think that there is an element of, he can kind of whisper in people's ears and get under people's skin and kind of start some of those thought processes that are not good or not helpful. But jealousy is something that is always going to be
Correct.
in the world. I think we live in a small town, and for better or worse, sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse.
Mhm.
So,
I totally
which I
agree.
think anyone in this town, would agree with. I mean, I am so grateful and blessed that, my husband and I landed here 6 years ago. My entire life, not to go on about my life, that's not what this is about, but my whole 30 years of living in Chicago, I wanted to be by an ocean. That was my goal in life.
Good for you.
And I was like, how do I get there? I was willing to go live in a hut in Haiti, if that's what it took, and be a missionary. Like, I would do anything. And I just kept turning around, and there'd be like another opportunity in Chicago that I felt like, was too good to pass up, or this was a right next step, or these people needed me, or whatever it was. So when by miracle of miracles, I got married and was whisked away to Florida, and then from Orlando landed in Vero, I was like, oh my gosh, all of my life goals have been accomplished.
Wow.
Now what am I going to do with myself?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I had to come up with some new goals, right? That wasn't my only goal. I've always wanted to be a business owner. And so I'm doing that too, which is, feels like I, am fulfilling a lot of those things. So, but to your point, that you think in your mind, like, if I achieve this goal, it's just going to be blissfully awesome.
Yes.
But life still happens.
Life still does happen.
And life is messy. And there's those great moments, and then there's those hard moments, and sometimes those hard moments come when you least expect them and from people you don't expect it from. Do you have any advice to kind of help people bounce back from maybe some of those setbacks, even if it's kind of more a mental setback than anything?
Well, I want to back up just for a second and say, every night now when I go home, Judy and I sit down for dinner, and we turn the news on, because I like to say that I think I'm up to date with what's going on in the world.
Okay. All right.
And I think I'm always very blessed to see Lester Holt every night on TV.
Oh, yeah.
I do like Lester Holt. I
Okay.
like the way he presents the news. I don't like all of the news he presents, because it's very scary sometimes of what's
Yeah.
going on in this world.
None of
But
that is
at
super
least
fun.
I have what I think is an understanding of what's going on in the world. So consequently, it makes me think every night that all of these bad things that he shows myself and Judy and the rest of the world that's listening to him or watching him, we can sift through that, or we should try to sift through that and say, what can we do to help those situations? Sit down, and after you turn the TV off and you've heard that bad broadcast about a bombing here or this or shooting or whatever.
Yes, all
You
the
know,
terrible things.
Yeah, sit down and say, okay, how do I handle this? Do I try to educate other people and talk to them and say, look, get involved. Try to do something good. Try to educate your friends, your neighbors. Educate your children about doing good things. And that's what I think all of us should be doing on a daily basis. Now, there's one last component to all of that. And to some people, this might sound very hokey. And to a lot of other people, I'm sure it isn't. But if we could all take 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, once in the morning and once at night, and say, thank you, Lord, for all the blessings that you have given me. Help me to continue to do what you want me to do. Guess what? It'll happen. It really will happen. So we have to be thankful every day. We tend to forget thankfulness.
Yes.
Okay? And that's so much a part of our lives.
There are so many studies that show that scientifically that is so good for your brain.
Yes.
It's good for your physical health to
Correct.
be grateful, to be thankful, to count your blessings, all those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You think about all the people, and this is very hard for me to say, but all those people coming from foreign countries trying to get into our country right now, whether it's legal or illegal, why do they want to come here? Because truthfully, we have a lot of bad things going on in this country right now, but we also have still a lot of great things.
Yeah.
And that's why people want to come here. We have the opportunity to get up in the morning and go to work. Do you want to go to work? That's your choice, okay? But you have an opportunity to go to work, make a living, feed and support your family. Be a capitalist. Yes. I'm happy with being a capitalist. Go to work.
You get to change your destiny.
Exactly.
In America, which I think is still something that is underrated, because there are a lot of countries where it's still harder to change your destiny than it is here.
We are still blessed in this country.
We are. And you are a great example of someone who's kind of zigged and zagged through different industries and different opportunities and kind of, figured out how to get from one thing to the next. If you were talking to somebody who was trying to maybe change their destiny a little bit, switch up their career, their industry, what advice would you give them?
I guess I'd ask them what they think they really would like to do first. Have you made a decision as to, okay, I've done this job for 10 years. I'm not happy with it any longer. What should I do? So maybe it's a hobby that you've been working with all your life, and you can convert that hobby into a job. Okay. That may be something you'll be happy with the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something that you've watched other people do, and you say, I think I could do that job just as well. Maybe even better.
Right.
So take the shot. Go do it. Don't be afraid, okay? There's plenty of education out there for all of us today to learn from.
Yep.
Okay? If I wanted to be an accountant, which I could never be, okay, because I couldn't sit I couldn't sit at a desk all day do numbers.
No, 100% same. God bless the accountant.
But you could go to school. You could become an accountant if you really wanted to.
If you really wanted
We are not limited.
Yes.
We're only limited by what we think we can do or can't do. It's up to us as human beings to do what we want to do.
Yes.
And you're doing what you want to do right now. I'm doing what I want to do right this second is by talking with you about this. And if I can get a little bit of a word out there to just 10 people, I'm happy. Because if I can excite somebody to do something new, great. And now I've done what I'm supposed to do.
There you go.
So
I hope one day that this podcast or video will encourage somebody who is maybe on the fence about changing the course of whatever it is that they're doing in life. And, or, maybe they're just discouraged. When you have your own business, well, any type of business, if you're working for somebody or you're working for yourself, you have those days where you're like, I just can't do this anymore. This is not worth it. This is, too painful. It's too hard. I want to give up. And sometimes it's not the time to give up.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's time to, somebody just reminded me of this the other day, or some quote somewhere where it's like, sometimes all you can say is it's time to go to bed.
Yes.
Go to bed, get some rest and sleep, get up and just do the work the next day, and then, see how you feel type of thing. So that always helps me.
I don't know where we are in this broadcast right at this moment, but
we're doing okay.
Okay.
We're getting nearer.
Close? Okay.
Let's say fourth quarter.
Okay. I guess one of the other things that I like to always speak about is education. Because education is so critical, even more so today than it was 50 years ago. And the reason I say that is because our world is moving so fast. Getting a job today, if I was still in business with my executive search business, I would be telling people, look, okay, let's get you placed into a job that's good for you and good for the employer. But the day you start that job, my statement to you is, think about it real hard. Start looking for your next job that day. Because jobs today are 3 years. That's it. Our society is moving so fast. Technology is constantly changing. It changes everything. It changes the way you buy groceries. Whoever thought you would buy groceries over a computer online and have it delivered to your house?
That is true.
That's a different,
kind of miraculous.
That's a different world.
Yes.
Different from my world when I was growing up.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everything is so different. So if you're looking at a job, look at it and say, okay, what am I doing 3 years from now? Start looking for that next job.
Interesting. That's interesting coming from a executive placement person, because you think, oh, I'm giving this person the perfect match, this little match made in heaven here between the employee and the employer or whatever. But it's not meant to last forever anymore.
Correct.
And that is a good thing for people to remember. You said that education is so important. There is some controversy about what is needed in terms of education anymore in the workplace. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess I do have some thoughts, but I'm not sure unless I really got totally involved. I have my own personal thoughts. I think a lot of it is, there's two things. I think parents have to be parents. That's number one.
Okay.
When they send their children to school, they're not sending them there for teachers to be babysitters or to be parents. The teachers are in school to teach a subject matter, whether it's math, English, history, social studies, science, whatever. That's what they're there for. Let's go back to the parents again. Parents, you have to be parents. You have to be disciplinarians also. You just can't say, oh, well, I love Johnny. I love Mary. Okay, they're wonderful little people. You're not there to just love them. Right. You're there to be a parent.
Yes.
And that is so critically important. They're not going to love you every minute.
The hard lessons.
Yes. And that's not happening.
Prepare them for
that's
life.
not happening these days. And what I see, and I'm sorry to have to say this, I know some people throw rocks at me for saying this, but.
Oh, boy. Everybody's turning it off right now.
Well, I hope not.
It's okay. Carry on. Yes, keep going.
When I see parents who like to, because of their status or whatever, socialize every night of the week, they're at parties, they're here, they're there, and they don't know where their children are sometimes, especially at that high school age. Can you give up those social evenings and spend time with your kids? Do activities with your kids. Maybe sometimes even take the phone away. Maybe sometimes take the iPad away.
Oh, boy.
And I know I'm hitting a real sorry note.
We are all the nerves of all the parents across the world.
Right? And I know that, and I understand it. But, we have issues, and you've heard them. Many thousands of other people have heard it. We talk about books in the libraries that are not good. But I wonder how many parents would really sit down and take a look at their children's phone, because almost every child has a phone today.
Yeah.
And what do those kids see on their phones?
Mm.
Far worse than most of the books that are in the libraries.
I literally was just saying to somebody yesterday, as somebody who's been in social media and the internet for a career, I would recommend maybe we say like social media is for 18 and up.
Not a bad idea.
I mean, that's kind of considered legal age, for adulthood, being able to make adult choices and things like that, like maybe it just, we whatever, take away the temptation and the gateway to kind of all those nasty things rather than trying to pick and choose and, parent around them and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. And let's expand on that just a little bit. We spend, I don't know how many millions of dollars on a daily basis with policemen in our school systems trying to protect these kids. Again, I go back to the parents. If they would educate their kids and be on top of their kids instead of letting their kids run wild in the school. Again, the school teachers are not there to be disciplinarians or parents.
So let me ask you this. I am from Chicago. I did not spend most of my growing up years in the city. We moved out to the suburbs, which was very pleasant. And then I went back to the city for work and things like that. But most people are pretty familiar with Chicago's South Side issues. For parents who are parents already, and they did not have a good upbringing, they did not have good parents that loved them, they don't have a good framework for what that even looks like, they are not well resourced, shall we say.
Okay.
There's a lot of focus on like with the kids, because the kids, we have them in school, we can do stuff there. Is it worth it, or is there a way to help parents who were kind of lost themselves and are not as equipped as, other families type of thing?
I'm not sure that I can give you an answer for that, but I'm sure that there are probably some people out there that are a lot more educated than both you and I that probably know the answers or have some thoughts and ideas about that. I never want to say no to anything because, saying no just means you're giving up. That's all there is. I don't want to give up on anybody.
Yeah.
Everybody is worth something.
Yes.
A lot, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
We need to find ways, okay, but we don't have to give it away. We have to help them to earn it. Okay. I just don't want to be handing people something all the time. Right. I want them to learn that they can have a better life, but they have to earn it.
Yeah.
So, and we'll provide some of those tools for them, but they have to be willing to do it.
Yeah. That there's not that quick overnight solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's happened in our world with young people who want to, say, drive an exquisite car or have a yacht or something like that, and they don't want to go to school or anything like that. So what?
I mean, that's the dream. Let's not have to go to school. Let's have a yacht. I mean,
exactly.
Sure. Great.
So
I'll sign up for that.
So how do I get that?
Right.
Well, if I go to work for a company, I'm not going to make that kind of money in most cases to do that. So let me go sell drugs. I'll make tons of money. I'll have all the cars, the gold chains. I'll have whatever.
It
okay.
Is so tragic.
And that's so what's happening to our country. If we really look and research, if America was smart, which I still think we are, and we still have a chance, we would look and study history. What does history tell us? We look at Rome. We look at Greece. They were at the top of their powers. 200 years in existence in most cases. Okay. Look at the United States of America. 200 years. Where are we?
I know. a
Let's
lot
make
of
some
people think that every empire has to fall at that 200 some
right.
year mark.
Okay, we don't have to, but we're going to allow it if we keep going the way we're going. We
Yeah.
just have to turn it around. So the word is the magic word is education. It's
Okay.
educating our children. It's
Mhm.
educating our parents to be parents.
Mm,
And
mhm,
if we can accomplish some of those things, we
mhm.
can turn this country around. We also have to, oh my God, I'll get in real trouble for this one.
This
We
this
have
podcast is going to end on a rough note.
we have to make sure that our people who are in power running our country are in power for the right reasons, not to line their pockets with money and
I don't know if we'll
opportunities.
ever get
Yeah,
that.
maybe not,
Okay.
but I'm going to keep harping on it.
Okay.
I'm going to keep saying it, and maybe somebody will listen. Maybe somebody will believe me. Somebody will believe you. But that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
Our politicians, I am so sorry to say this, they are giving up on this country. They really are.
Well,
Sorry.
it's so many layers of issues that we don't even have time to delve into. But I do think that there is a great conversation to be had around politics as a industry in our country,
Mhm.
just like the military industrial complex that people talk about. We've
Mhm.
definitely created a political industrial
Yes.
complex.
Yes, we have.
There are huge careers, not even just the politician, right? But consultants and the people around them and campaign managers and things like that. And, it's an industry and people have built their livelihoods on it. They don't
Exactly.
want to live their livelihoods. They don't want it to change in any type of
Mhm.
way. So that's an even bigger conversation if people are willing to kind of take a look at it at some point, because originally, if you look at the history books, being a politician or an elected official in this country was never meant to be a full-time job.
Correct.
So it's very interesting where we've landed. Not surprising, but worth a second look, maybe.
I think we need to really take a second look
Yeah.
and evaluate where we are politically and
Mhm.
can we change?
Mhm.
Industry changes every couple of years, different things.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
manufacture cars differently today than they did 50 years ago.
Yes.
Hospitals run differently than they did 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Medicine is different. Everything has changed
Yeah.
except our political world. It's still the same, only it's gotten bigger
Mhm.
and probably, how do I say this again and try to be polite at the same time? I don't want to be polite.
It's a good thing we're not drinking on this
Yes,
podcast.
you're right.
It would have really gone sideways.
But we really have a lot of people in the political spectrum that really do not belong there. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth of it.
That's fair.
So,
Again, it kind of comes down to, it would be really interesting to have a few people sit down and talk about what they think an elected, like what qualities they think an elected official should have,
Mhm.
because it's changed a lot. The type of people that we vote for has changed a lot. The options that we have changed a lot. So I agree with you that all of those things would need to change. I think it would really take something disruptive to dramatically change the way that politics look in this country, because currently everybody in it is making a lot of money. There's
Yes,
no
they are.
impotence to change.
Correct.
If that's the word I'm looking for.
Let's add one more thing into the mix, if you don't mind.
Oh boy. Okay.
Again, living in the greatest country in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and talking about losing the greatest country in the world.
Mm.
We have a situation going on right now that's been going on for probably 10 years, but it's becoming more aggressive now than ever. And we have to look at it and say, okay, what are we going to do about it and how quickly are we going to manage it? But we have the Chinese Communist Party, who
that is a hot button issue.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Okay. And they are here. They've come here. They actually opened up their own police station in New York City. And finally, that's been clamped down on, okay, and probably has gone away within the past couple of weeks. They also have 2 police stations in the Toronto area that they've opened up. And they're opening up these police stations all over the world. And it's just another way for them to gather information, in particular on us in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're doing. We also have I guess maybe billionaires, like somebody called Bill Gates, who decides he's going to sell all this land that he owns, and he's going to sell it to the Chinese, even though it sits right next to our military bases, and they say they're selling them farmland. I mean, how smart do you have to be, or how dumb do you have to be to figure that one out? Okay,
Right.
what's really going on there?
Right.
What's happened here in the state of Florida, in Levy County?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we have Levy County, which we just sold the land to the Chinese there, and they want to do it. They want to have a laboratory there for monkeys. Another Wuhan all over? Wow. Pretty scary.
Aren't we against testing things on monkeys?
Well, I don't know the real answer to that, but it seems funny that all of these things just keep happening. And we even have a local company, believe it or not, here in sunny Vero Beach that is owned by the Chinese.
Interesting.
And they're into the farming industry. I won't mention any names. We'll let our audience do
they
that.
Can do a little research. Yep. Yeah.
So where are we, ladies and gentlemen?
It is really concerning. And again, I just feel like there's so many levels of issues, and some people are of the mindset that kind of the things happening on social media and pop culture and things like that are kind of all a distraction from dealing with and thinking about some of these things. And it is really tough. It can feel really overwhelming because there's just so many things. Like, there's that issue, right? That is very concerning. And then, as you mentioned earlier, there's things like child abuse, right? Which front and center is so upsetting and concerning. And then there's things like the utility bills keep creeping up, and, now we got to figure out how to make more money. And, so you're dealing with your personal issues and then relational issues and things like that. And so there's that thing called the Maslow's hierarchy.
Correct.
Yes. I was reaching for it there. But I am a big believer that just holds true on so many levels. And what Maslow's hierarchy says is that you have to kind of have your base needs as a human creature, almost your animalistic needs, taken care of first before you can worry about anything else, which I think everybody can kind of agree with, right? So you have to have food and water. That's bottom line. Secondarily is like shelter, right? So some type of shelter. And then beyond that, there's some basic emotional needs that people have to, be able to relate to people or be in like a safe community. And then you are at a place where you can then start thinking about things outside of yourself and think about your friends, your neighbor, your politicians, your community. What can you do to kind of give back to the world type of thing? So it's so basic, but at the same time, like that it's the core root of kind of all the problems is that we were talking about, parents who did not have a loving, safe home, have their basic needs met, then they're not able to think outside of themselves. They're just worried about taking care of themselves because they have so many kind of unmet needs from their childhood type of thing. And so then how many people in this country are really at a place where they're internally and personally feeling secure enough that then they can focus on helping or fixing these bigger issues? I think it might be a small number really across the nation, or a smaller percentage.
Well, again, it depends on where I think you're living. If you're living in, say, a big city like New York, maybe Chicago, I'm not familiar with Chicago, but that's a whole different lifestyle, a different way of living compared to what I want to call the little hamlet of Vero Beach.
Hardly a hamlet in some ways.
Well, that might be true too.
The small kingdom of Vero Beach.
If you talk about isolationism, and we could go back to that wall that we were trying to create over the Mexican border a few years ago. It seems to me like Vero Beach is insulated, and we have that wall around us here in Vero Beach. And we kind of turn the rest of the world off, and we like to pretend that there's nothing wrong in the world out there. But you know what? We have been infiltrated by more and more outsiders. Not, I shouldn't say that. That's the wrong word.
Infiltrator.
We just have people moving here, okay, from other areas of the country now.
Yes.
And things are changing.
Yes.
And yet
there's some reminders of the outside world now.
People that are living here don't want to accept change. I don't like to accept a lot of change either. But you know what? It's going to happen no matter whether I like it or not. But let's accept it, the change, embrace the change in a good way. Put caveats out there to protect ourselves as much as we can.
Maybe meet the change.
Meet the change.
And
good word.
Yes, try to do your part to help shape it a little bit.
Absolutely.
In the right direction.
And get involved. Be involved. But don't point fingers at one another and say, I'm going to kill you just because I don't like your idea.
Well, yes, let's not do that.
Okay.
No, yes. I think that is almost a great note to end on, unless we have any other stories that we need to tell. But change is inevitable, but we can meet it where it is, and you can be involved, and you can kind of put all of your life experiences to good use and help your friends and neighbors, whether it's here in our little hamlet, as you say, or wherever you are in the world type of thing. You know, as everybody likes to quote, we need to be the change we want to see.
Absolutely.
Right. And it only works if we're willing to do our part, each and every one of us.
Absolutely. I want to say thank you, Morgan, to you for this opportunity to be with you and talk about this subject matter. I hope that there's a million hits, no matter what you want to call it, to look at this, not because I'm here or because you're here, just because of the different subject matter. And if we can get people to start thinking in a positive way, not the negatives. Right. What can I do to help my family, my loved ones, my city, my county, my country? What can I do to help?
I think your message is one of there is a lot of power that a single person can hold. And it only takes kind of one person to start the ball rolling on something. Sometimes maybe the ball is rolling and you think, oh, that person's got it covered. But maybe they need somebody behind them, a little extra momentum to kind of help keep it going. And I think if each and every one of us feels a little bit encouraged that all is not lost, there is still room for each of us to help contribute and make our community or our country or the world at large a little bit better each and every day for the people around us.
Again, thank you for the opportunity.
You are a great inspiration, Joe. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It was my great pleasure. So we're going to turn everything off. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. And check out the links in the description and all those good things, and more to come in the future.